Welcome to Shadowed Tales Archive. Tonight, we invite you to descend into darkness with a chilling anthology of horror stories. This is episode 35. Let the nightmare begin. The Thing Beneath the Stairs. I hadn't been to my childhood home since my parents got divorced. I was 5 years old when I was last in that home. It was very important to me to have my home in my possession. My dad built half of the house and the entire backyard. Now that I'm married and ready to start a family, I really wanted my old childhood home back in my life. I didn't have much of a childhood, and this was one place where I really remember feeling happy. Everything was perfect in that house, but there was one thing that I found odd. There was an extra door that I don't remember being next to the master bathroom. It had 3 padlocks on it above the doorknob and 1 chain latch near the floor. Mark, my husband, gave me a side glance at my reaction. "Was this not here before?" he asked me. "No, I have no idea what this door could be. If it was an extra bedroom, why the locks?" "It's okay, Anna. We'll get some bolt cutters tomorrow," Mark said as he went out to the car. Honestly, it just puzzled me. It couldn't have been an extra room. There was no space between the master bath and the master bedroom, just 8 feet apart from each other in the hall. It was strange to try and think what the hell the previous owners built in my house. Even when I didn't live here, this building was always my house. It took all day to get most of the boxes moved into the large living room. Memories started flooding back to me about the fun times of this house. It was too bad that all the big furniture wouldn't arrive from Maryland until tomorrow. When it finally came time to crash, Mark and I laid out some blankets in the master bedroom along with some pillows. It was surreal to be sleeping in the room that once belonged to my parents. There was a small room across the hall that used to be my bedroom. Past the living room, dining room, and in the hall closest to the front of the home was another full bathroom and what used to be my older sister's room. Before it was her room, that room was my Grandma May's. Grandma May was my father's mother, and from what I can remember, she was an amazing woman. She died before I was 5 of a heart attack, and Grandpa, Joe, passed 2 months before I was born. Remembering some of these things so late at night kept me awake. I had to glance at my phone to check what time it was, midnight. We didn't have any food yet in the house, but we did have our plating and glassware. After ripping open a box from the kitchen, I let the faucet run for a second before filling a cup with water. Something odd caught my attention. I heard some rustling in the living room. It didn't even come from a living room, but the door between the master bath and bedroom. The locked door. I was a bit wary, but I put my ear to the door. Skitter, skitter. It sounded like squirrels to me, like claws on cement. Squirrels, raccoons, and cats in basements or attics were a common thing in Illinois, so I wasn't too worried. I would just have to remember to tell Mark in the morning before we went to get the bolt cutters. Morning soon came, but I didn't get any sleep really. Mark was still asleep around 11 a.m., but I just started unpacking. I was so happy to have so much cabinet space and such a large kitchen. It sure as hell beats a tiny apartment space. Everything will really come together when the furniture gets here. Skitter, skitter. Skek, scratch. Those damn sounds again. I set down the stack of plates I was putting away and put my ear to the door again. They sounded close and frequent. It better have not been mice. Mice were such a huge problem because we live in a farm town, and they would not be ruining my house. I couldn't stand mice. I have had so many problems with them when I lived here before I graduated high school. One even jumped down my mom's shirt, and in the same place, one knocked at my hamster somehow. After the scratching stopped, it sounded like boxes toppling over. There must have been a colony of whatever in there, as well as other owners' items. I went to the bedroom and poked at Mark with my foot to wake him up. "Get up, babe. We need to get the day started," I said softly before kneeling down and kissing his cheek. Mark muttered and chuckled at my kisses before pulling me close into a hug. "No, I want to be here all day with you, Anna. I love this man to death, but goddamn, he joked too much when business needs to get done. No, get up. We have shit to do," I said before pushing his long curls out of his face. "Brush your teeth and get up." I gave him a pat on the cheek before getting up again. Once we got back from Walmart, Mark and I got ready to open up the locked door. We had picked up some mouse traps, cheese, flashlights, replacement padlocks with keys, and bolt cutters. It took both of us to press on the cutters to snap all 3 padlocks. The chain lock was actually rusted, so Mark snapped easily with the cutters. I unlocked the door, and I was met with musty, stale air. Dust floated in the void from the other side and hung in the air that led down a staircase. "It's a basement," Mark said as he shined his flashlight down the stairs before looking at the other side of the door. He crouched down to feel long gouges on the lower part of the door. They must have had a dogs down here or something. Bubby used to paw at the back door when he wanted to come in. I listened to him, but I went down the stairs carefully. They were very creaky, just like my grandma's old basement stairs. With the aid of my flashlight, I gazed around the basement. It was so cluttered with old boxes and storage tubs. I saw the fallen tower of boxes that I heard topple over the night before. Mark and I laid out the traps and took a deeper look into the basement. It was very expansive, covering the entire house. Most of it was walled off with the storage, but in the back of the area, there was a living space. A refrigerator, sofa, television, twin-size cot, the works. Mark flipped on a light switch, and half of the area lit up. Dear God, it was smothered in dust. The couch was scratched up like a cat, or 3, tore at it in boredom. I knelt down to look at the dust on the floor, staring at the tracks in it. They looked similar to raccoon paws, but they were too big for a raccoon. Mark distracted me with opening up the fridge to find a half-empty jar of pickles. Honestly, that wasn't the first time I've seen that. After a year in the house, I was excited to tell Mark the big news. He was elated to hear that he was going to be a father. We went down into the basement, often to look around for children's things. We found many baby toys and play items, even a dismantled crib. Mark mentioned that it was odd of how many things were in this basement. It was strange, but we both admitted that free shit was free shit. Mark and I set up the nursery in my old bedroom after cleaning everything off. We were so excited for the baby that it outweighed the rodents in the basement. I noticed that some of our food had been nibbled or full bites being taken out of it. Mark and I were both midnight snackers, so we didn't think much of it. The baby came months later, and we were both so happy. His name was Ethan Michael, and he was perfect baby boy. When Ethan was still a newborn, something strange happened while Mark was at work. I was giving my son a bath in the front hall bathroom when I heard scratches at wood. I tried to tune them out so I could finish bathing Ethan before I put him to bed. The sounds were getting louder and more frequent, but what made me jolt was the door slamming open. It made me snatch up my baby as fast and carefully as I could. I wrapped Ethan up and held him to my chest. The parlor door was closed and locked. Then I turned my attention to the other end of the hall. It was the door to the basement, wide open. The door opened with such strength that there was a hole in the wall from the knob. I was so freaked out and in fear for my baby's life that I rushed to the kitchen to grab our largest knife. I held it with the blade to the floor and the sharp side facing outwards. Sounds enacted from my son's bedroom. Sounds that horrify me to this day. Biting, gnawing, growling. Something was in my house. Mark's car pulled into the driveway, making me break my line of sight for just a second. The door slammed shut as soon as I looked away. I was holding back a scream as to not scare Ethan. When Mark got into the house, I told him exactly what happened. I was close behind him when we took a peek into our son's room. One of the toys we had brought up from the basement had completely been chewed in half. I told Mark about what I witnessed, but he told me to calm down first. He went down into the basement to take a look around, but didn't find anything out of place. To ease my mind, Mark added 2 of the padlocks back onto the door. It did ease my mind, and eventually we unlocked it again. For the next 2 years, we worked on that basement to get it empty. We sold a lot of the items in various yard sales and tossed out whatever was left behind. Other things we use in the house, like decorative knickknacks and such. It was much better than how Grandma May and my parents had it decorated. I mean, Grandma May collected clown shit, and Mom and Dad didn't do much decorating at all. Ethan had free range of the house now that he was up and walking. He did the usual toddler things. Falling, bumping into things, doing his best to talk. but we began to notice something rather strange. Mark told me that Ethan had some strange fascination with the basement door. He said that Ethan would try to look under the door and stuck his fingers under it as well. This damn basement was getting on my last goddamn nerve. I honestly was about to have the basement sealed off completely if this pursued. Now, I really wish I would have. As Ethan got older, around age 5, I noticed him becoming even more involved with the door. He even tried to get the kids I babysat to mess with the door. Ethan boasted that he could even get the door open and get to the stuff down there. There was no way he could reach the locks. They were well above his head. I dismissed it as nothing. I did the same things as a kid to seem cooler to my peers. One of the little girls I watched, Lindsay, managed to get her fingers caught under the door. I spent the rest of that day picking splinters out of toddler's hand. Later that night, I went to bed early because I had a morning shift at work tomorrow. Mark shook me awake around 2 a.m., and he looked more pale than usual. He didn't say anything to me, but he took me by the arm and pulled me out of the bed. What I saw next was spine-tingling. Mark had me peer around the doorway, and I saw Ethan standing on a chair at the basement door. He was loosening the screws on the padlocks with a screwdriver. Once he noticed us, he dropped the screwdriver and began to cry. He knew he was in trouble. I took him back to bed, and Mark put the chair back before tightening the screws back. Ethan wouldn't calm down at all, no matter what I did to try and console him. I finally got him to relax enough to talk to me. Mr. Nails told me to take the locks off cause he wants to be up here too. My son spoke through tiny sniffles. Mr. Nails? Was that a toy that he dropped down there? I asked Mark to stay with Ethan while I went down to the basement to look around. With my baseball bat, I unlocked the lock, then opened the door. The dark void met me, but was soon lit when I flicked on the light switch. I kept an eye out for anything that would look like a Mr. Nails or a toy that Ethan might have accidentally lost down here. I took up the flashlight at the end of the stairs to look into darker places that the ceiling lights couldn't reach. It was 2 in the damn morning, and I had work tomorrow, but something in Ethan's tone was urgent. The basement door creaked shut. "Babe, can you open the door?" I yelled up to my husband when I was by the small living space that we cleaned up from when we first moved in. No sound came from upstairs. No creaking of someone walking, and no returning creak of the door opening. I knew something was down here. It wasn't a toy. It wasn't anything small nor local. Something was watching me. I felt eyes boring into my back. Skitter, skitter. Those damn noises. Those scratching sounds that we've heard since day one. Rage swelled into my chest, and I bellowed out, "Quit hiding. I know you're down here." I slammed the bat down onto the cement floor, just inches from my frozen toes. The floor was so cold. What worried me more was that my family upstairs didn't make a sound. My knuckles were turning white at how tight I was gripping my baseball bat. There was a massive rush of light steps up the basement stairs and the door hitting the wall. My heart leapt then. I felt my voice rip out of my throat. Boys. It's been 2 months since Ethan and Mark were murdered. I sealed off the basement door, looking like it did when I was a child. Just a wall. It was just me there in the house, and it was torture. The silence deafened me to the point where I couldn't stay inside. Going into the backyard didn't help me at all. Murder in my little hometown was very rare, but the thing about it is, I knew it wasn't a human who murdered my family. Whatever was in my basement is what killed them, and I was going to kill it. I was prepared. For the last 2 months, I got everything ready to destroy this Mr. Nails. It was broad daylight, and I was ready. With mighty swings, I tore down the drywall with a sledgehammer. There was that disgusting door. I unlocked the door, then the padlocks. "This is my house, you monster, and I'm not leaving it to you." I screamed down the stairs before turning on the light. It was easy to break the door good enough that it couldn't close or open anymore. This was my house, and it has always been my house. And I'll die before it will stop being my house. Like the first time we opened the basement door, the air was stagnant. This time, Mr. Nails wasn't hiding from me. I saw it. Lanky, skin clinging to bone, pure white hair shrouding its face and swallowed in white robes. I could tell that it was as thin as possible, even under the clothes. Long scraping sounds were heard as it stepped out from the shadows. Its feet bore 3-inch-long claws that matches its bony hands. Those are what tore up the door, and my husband and son. My son had been trying to talk with this thing. It was much taller than I was, which also made it taller than Mark. I couldn't see its face, but I knew it was looking at me. Mr. Nails. I felt my rage drain into utter fear. It didn't respond to me, but reached out its thick, dirty clawed hands. My stomach was starting to turn. I could hear it in my head. I've been here since before this place was here. Do you not remember, Anna? We used to have such fun here. Its voice was raspy, dry, and horrifying. I used to speak to you through the floor while you were a little girl. We used to play so many little games with Claire. Claire, my older sister? What was this thing talking? I remembered. This thing's voice. You recall our playtime? How sweet. Mr. Nails stepped closer to me. I didn't move. You called me Angel. But I'm afraid once you left, dear Anna, I grew tired of every other family who came in and out of this. Your little boy was too curious and very annoying. But you, my dear Anna, are perfect. You still are, even all grown up. Its nails were on my face. Cold, clammy hands holding my cheeks. I could feel its breath. You, Anna, are perfect, and I would like to make a proposition to you. Well, what is it? I want more children in this house. Children that are like you. Huh. A smile crept up on the corner of my lips. Yes, Angel. The other half. The night is especially silent, and the moon is missing the company of its alluring stars. Sitting on the edge of a dusty old mattress, Claire Morgan holds on tightly to the agate necklace her grandmother gave her less than a year ago. Tonight feels different than most nights, and the overpowering feeling of distress overcomes Claire's spirit. Are you ready? The voice of a friend echoes through the abandoned house. Hannah Reed stands at the bottom of the rotten old stairs with her hand gripping the end of the banister. Hello, are you ready or what? Holding the agate stone closer to her chest, Claire's response echoes her uncertainty. Yes, I'm ready. With one last look at the night sky, she makes her way down the creaky stairs. The girl's 5-year tradition of coming to the abandoned cottage was getting a little old for Claire. At least, that's what she hoped her mixed feelings were about. Telling ghost stories in an old house in the middle of the woods at night doesn't exactly sound like a perfect slumber party. Claire makes her way into the old dining room, where all the girls sit around in a circle. She passes a cracked mirror on her way to the girls and jumps at the sight of something reflected in the mirror behind her. Come on, Claire, Hannah says. Now is not the time to be scaring yourself. You have to share the terror with all of us. She winks. Claire looks at the mirror one last time before heading towards the circle. Come on. Lena Walsh pats the floor beside her. You can sit next to me. Lena leans forward and lights a lavender and sandalwood incense in the center of the floor, then sits back up. A cold breeze flows through the eerie home as it makes the worn curtains on the windows dance to the dark hymn of the night. Beautiful, Lena whispers. Come on, ladies, Hannah says. We need to get started before it starts to rain. I don't want to get stuck in the mud when we're back outside. Claire, it's your turn to start off with a ghost story tonight. It better be a good one, too, or else you'll have to stay the night in this old hell house. Claire nods in agreement and clears her throat. My ghost story for the night is about a dream a young girl once had. A questionable look forms on Lena's face. What? A dream? How scary can a dream be? Tell me about it. Hannah feigns a yawn. I'm already bored out of my mind. Well, just because it was a dream doesn't mean that it's not scary. Believe me, anything that comes to you personally through a dream should be considered scarier than a made-up story, Claire argues. All right, Hannah waves her hand in the air. You may continue. Okay, as I was saying, the sound of footsteps make their way towards Claire's back. Boo! Maya Collins screams in Claire's ear in an attempt to scare the living daylights out of her. The only thing she gets out of Claire is a slight jump. Oh, come on, Maya says, dissatisfied. I didn't scare you. No, Claire responds. But I kind of was expecting someone else to appear behind me. since I saw the reflection in the mirror when I came downstairs." "What reflection?" Maya asks. Claire rolls her eyes at Maya's attempt to play stupid. "I saw your reflection in the mirror over there." She points towards a mirror. "You were standing in the kitchen." No. I was never in the kitchen. I was hiding behind the stairs," Maya responds. "This better not be your attempt to try to scare me. You're not really good at that." "Okay, whatever," Claire smiles. "Sit down so I can continue my story." Maya makes her way through the circle and sits down, crossing one leg over the other. She winks at Claire, making an unnecessary yet suggestive comment. "I'm very flexible." The room fills with laughter for a few seconds, and then back to silence as the girls sit up straight, finally preparing themselves for the story. "Well, like I was saying before being rudely interrupted," Claire glares at Maya. "There's a girl who has a dream scarier than any other dream she's ever had. If I were to name her dream, I would call it The Other Half. In her dream, her soul comes out of her body and interacts with her like a normal human being. They act like best friends. They dance around together and laugh at how silly they are acting. She couldn't help but feel blissfully happy. In a way, she feels like she's getting to know herself inside and out. The only thing she finds odd about her dream is the fact that her soul is of Asian descent, and she was white." Claire laughs as she shakes her head. "Either way, they are both happy to be together." Ahem. Hannah clears her throat as if trying to rush Claire's story. Everyone could tell she was at the point of becoming impatient. Knowing how bitchy Hannah can be when impatient, Claire skips to the interesting part of her dream. As they dance around, they hear a voice. She can't explain how she knows this, but she can tell it's the voice of a demon. So they start to run. They run as fast as they can. They can't tell where they're going. They just want to get away from the demon. At one point, she can feel her soul slowing down, lagging behind her, and, well, eventually coming to a complete stop. She doesn't know what her soul was doing, but something tells her to keep running. Visions start running through her head like a movie. She can see her soul speaking to the demon, making some sort of pact with it. Now she finds herself running away from both her soul and the demon. In her dream, she already knows what her soul wants and how the demon is willing to help her out. It turns out that her soul wants to be her own person. She wants to have her own body, her own life. The demon tells her he will help her fulfill her desires. All she needs to do is find her way back inside the girl's body and tear her way out through her stomach while killing the girl in the process. See, she can't be her own person if the girl is still alive. Her body is considered to be a prison, and her soul was her captive. The sad part is, she really thought her soul was happy with her. "A lot of people think they're happy together," Maya chimes in, "until one finally finds who they really are and wants out of their so-called relationship." "Yeah, exactly," Claire agrees. Well, either way, she continues to run her dream. Finally, she comes up to her bedroom, her real bedroom in the real world. She tries hiding under her bed, but she can't quite fit underneath. She starts using her feet to push herself further and further beneath the bed. As she's finally able to hide more than half of her body, she sees her soul's feet appear at the foot of the bed. Her heart pounds like crazy in her dream, and she can feel it. It feels so real. Her soul runs to the side of the bed where the girl is hiding and throws herself on the ground, slamming her left knee down first and then her left hand. Her hair touches the ground as she lowers her head to the side, ready to show her face. She's found her. "Well," Lena asks, "what happened?" "Nothing," Claire responds. The girl wakes up before she's able to see her soul's face, but she still wonders what would have happened if she had seen her face in the dream. Hannah rolls her eyes. "The girl already saw her face, duh." "Well, yeah," Claire says. "She saw her face at the beginning of the dream when they were happy together. Something tells me her soul's face was different after making the pact to kill the girl. Her soul had been tainted, and there's nothing she could do about it." "Oh, please," Lena laughs. "You're saying that as if it were all real. That girl's soul is fine, which makes this story not scary at all. You seriously thought that would scare us? Hannah laughs. Maybe I'll have my grandmother tell us a story the next time. At least she has a shaky voice and can make anything scary, unlike Claire. Claire looks down at the floor, slightly embarrassed. Sorry to have disappointed you guys. No worries, Maya replies. You just need some practice. Positioning herself closer within the circle, Hannah lights 2 purple candles, then moves to light 2 green candles in the center of the 3 circles drawn in the center of the floor. All right, girls, she smiles. Time to call the spirits. The girls bring themselves to their knees and sit in upright positions. Hannah extends her hand to Claire. Agate necklace, please. Claire holds the gemstone as tight as she can before taking it off. She hands it to Hannah and immediately feels a sense of regret. Hannah places the agate in the center of the altar and lights the spirit candle. The sandalwood and lavender incense, lit a few moments before by Lena, is taken by Hannah. She then takes the lavender and willow bark incense that was previously lit by Claire and holds both up in front of a bowl. I've already marked this bowl for divination, Hannah says while showing the bowl to the girls. I have also brought the 3 casting stones. She holds the stones in her hand, then casts the incense into a burner. Okay, girls, Hannah says in a soft voice. It is now time to open your mind, body, and soul, she smiles at Claire. Join hands as we welcome the spirits into our presence. Spirits of goodwill, I bid thee enter the outer circle, the second circle, the inner circle. I am protected by this pinnacle upon my breast. Claire squeezes Maya's hands as she starts to fear for her life. What's wrong with you? Maya whispers. Chill out. Hannah opens her eyes from her incantation. Shush, she says. You know we can't break our concentration. Now, close your eyes. Maya and Claire lower their heads and do as they're bid. Hannah continues to repeat her incantation 2 more times. Tarot cards are used to introduce the spirit willing to make its appearance. Why is it taking so long? Lena asks Maya. Before responding, Maya glances at Hannah to see if she heard Lena's question. I don't know. Now, shut up and concentrate. Claire can hear the girl speaking, but a pressure on her head gets her attention. She squeezes Hannah's hand, letting her know to look. Hannah, she whispers. Look. Claire looks upward, hoping Hannah can see the hair at the top of her head being pressed down. Hannah looks irritated when she responds to Claire. What are you doing? Can you see it? Claire asks. I don't see anything, Hannah snaps. I have to finish this or else I can't make contact. One by one, Hannah pulls out her tarot cards and holds them firmly in her hand. Claire's stomach starts to cramp up. She fears that something is trying to attack her and no one believes her. I can't do this, you guys. Claire finally speaks up. She stands up and backs away from the girls, instantly breaking the protected boundary between the living and the dead. What have you done? Are you insane? Hannah yells. Claire shakes her head. I can't sit here anymore, she says. Why not? Hannah asks. I just don't feel comfortable. I need to get some fresh air. Claire stumbles her way out of the abandoned cottage and rests against a wooden column on the porch. Maya soon follows to check on Claire. What's going on? I'm not sure, Claire responds. Tonight is just not a good night for me, I guess. Maya looks down at Claire's hand, which is firmly placed on her stomach. Why are you holding your stomach? She asks. Are you not feeling well? Claire looks down at her stomach and responds, It kind of hurts. I guess my nerves are really bad. Hannah bursts her way out of the house onto the porch. Are you kidding me? Claire tries to respond, but the cramping in her stomach worsens, making her bend over forward. The pain is becoming unbearable to take. Claire, are you okay? What's wrong? Lena fretfully asks. Oh, don't pay her any attention, Hannah snaps. She's just doing this for attention. Her ghost story wasn't scary enough, so she's trying to scare us all now. Isn't that right? No, Claire responds through her tears. Leave her alone, Hannah. Maya pleads. She doesn't know if Claire is lying or not. Claire isn't known for pulling off bad pranks like this. She knows something is honestly wrong with her. Come on, Hannah yells. You can't tell me you don't see what she's trying to do. She's pretending to be in the stupid dream she spoke of. No, I'm not, Claire cries. Tap, tap, tap. What was that? Lena asks as she looks over at the living room window. Did you guys hear that? Give me a break, Hannah mumbles under her breath. Seriously, Lena walks towards a window. I thought I heard someone tapping on the window from inside. There's no one else here with us, Maya says. Great. Are you trying to scare us too? Hannah asks. Let's just go back inside and grab our stuff. This stopped being fun when Claire started crying out for attention. All right, Maya agrees. Let's go grab our stuff. I guess I'll go back inside too. Lena hesitantly agrees. Please don't leave me alone out here, Claire pleads. I don't feel so well. The girls make their way back inside the house while Claire remains outside alone. It was my dream, she whispers in hopes that one of the girls can hear her. Do you really think Claire is making all of this up for attention? Lena asks Maya. I don't know, Maya responds. All I know is that I don't feel right being here anymore. Lena feels a cold chill overcome her body, making her rub her arms. I don't feel right either. The sound of something moving in the kitchen catches the girl's attention. Hannah pauses from picking her tarot cards from the floor. What the hell is that? She looks at the girls. Do you hear that? Yes, Lena responds. I told you I heard something tapping at the window. Calm down, Hannah replies. Let's just get the hell out of here before more crazy shit happens. The girls grab their belongings as fast as they can and make their way towards the door. Before reaching the door, Lena sees a reflection in the mirror through the corner of her eye. She stops and looks straight into the mirror, hoping it's just her imagination. Oh, she lets out a terrifying scream when she sees what's being reflected in the mirror. What's wrong? Maya calls out to Lena. Speechless from what she is seeing, Lena points her finger at the mirror. Her face is pale as a ghost, and her response sends a shock to the girls. Demon. Before the girls can react to what Lena has just said, a shrieking scream is heard from outside. Ah! In the midst of the terrifying confusion, they had forgotten that Claire was still outside alone. Maya and Hannah disregard Lena's statement about seeing a demon and run to Claire's rescue just to find her squirming on the ground in agony. Help me. It hurts, Claire cries. Before Maya is able to reach Claire on the ground, Hannah holds her back. Look, she says. Look at what? Maya desperately questions Hannah. There's blood on the ground next to Claire, Hannah points. The girls stand there in shock at what they are seeing. Claire's stomach is being torn from the inside out. They watch as the skin from her stomach is ripped apart. Claire's desperate cries for help are faint as blood fills her throat. The tapping sound returns once again from the living room window. The girls look at the direction where the sound is coming from and see the horrible sight Lena had seen less than 4 minutes ago. It's a demon, and the smile on his face expresses how pleased he is by what is going on. This can't be happening right now, Maya cries. What did you do during the ritual? She screams at Hannah. I didn't do anything. Hannah cries out. I've never done this before. I thought it would be something different. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. You don't even know what the hell is going on. Lena yells. Oh my God. She points in Claire's direction. What is that? All at once, the girls pause in terror at what they are seeing. A hand appears to be forcing its way out from Claire's stomach. One hand, then another. A human is making its way out. The head appears after both hands touch the ground. It's covered in blood, but the girls can tell it is female. Her head comes out, then her neck, then her shoulders. She crawls out slowly from Claire, who is still alive. The unknown woman turns her head towards the girls and shows a sadistic grin while whispering 2 words. The other, half. Knowing nothing can be done to save their friend, the girls start running into the woods away from the demon, away from the house, and away from their helpless friend. Help! Help me! Help me! Claire continues to plead as she extends her arms out to the girls that have now disappeared into darkness. As her eyes glaze over, she falls with her back to the ground and releases her last breath. The forgotten truth. I suffer from short-term memory loss, or at least I think I do. See, SDML isn't exactly how it's portrayed in the movies. No, I don't go to bed at night and wake up the next day having completely forgotten the events of the day prior. For me, it's more so the little things. It started about 6 months ago when I woke up at 6 a.m. to go to the local gas station and fulfill my daily routine of a morning coffee before work. The thing is, I couldn't find my keys. I know for some that may sound like nothing, and most people will just chop it up to me having misplaced them. To be fair, they're not completely wrong. But please, hear me out for a second. I am very organized, some may even classify it as OCD. However, I like to think of it as me being very careful with my items. I mean, for God's sake, I have a key holder for car, I'm single. Nobody is coming in out of here, I own one car, and the key holder can hold up to 10 keys, though that's a bit ridiculous in my opinion. The point I'm trying to make is that I would never in a million years not put my keys back on the holder. I spent that entire morning in a frenzy trying to find them. I kept trying to recount my steps from the day prior, but everything felt so fuzzy. It wasn't your typical, I can't remember something. No, it was like I had a complete gap in my memory. I dug through drawers, pant pockets, couch cushions, the trash can. I almost even went as far as pulling up my floorboards in hopes of finding some hidden treasure in the form of my keys. Of course, I had to call work and tell them I would be a few hours late. Finally, my panic pursuit came to an end, for the time being at least, and grabbed my spare keys. That was only the first of many similar incidents to come. A few months went by, and I continued to search for my keys, to no avail. Part of me was paranoid someone had taken them, given him access to my car and front door. Logically, I knew that couldn't happen. Why would anyone break into my house simply to take my keys? So, I let it pass, and to keep my paranoid mind at bay, I changed the locks. The thing that irked me most about it was losing the keychain. My girlfriend, or now ex-girlfriend, gave me the keychain at the start of our relationship 2 years ago, and it had this white rabbit's foot on it. When she gave it to me, she said, "Since you made me the luckiest girl, I only thought it would be fair to give you some luck back." Yeah, I know it's cheesy, but sometimes cheesy can work. She really was great, and it still amazes me how something as great as our relationship can turn sour in the matter of a few weeks. We have now been separated for around 6 months. I would be a liar if I said I still don't think about her every day. It was almost Christmas time when the next SDML incident would occur. This year my office was throwing a fairly big party, and since the party would be the best time to rub shoulders with upper management, I thought I should try to look my best. So, I had mentally planned out my best outfit. A black buttoned-up shirt, expensive dark gray dress pants with my not too flashy but still stylish Prada belt, and my best pair of shoes. This was a very expensive outfit, one that I have rarely ever worn and only for the most important of events. It goes without saying that it would come to my complete and utter shock that when I went digging through my closet to find the outfit, it was nowhere to be found. At first, I didn't believe it. I almost refused to believe that it could just vanish like that. I spent at least an hour tearing my closet apart, clothes strewn across my room, looking for the outfit. My once tidy room now looked like a literal tornado had come through and tore it apart. After searching the closet top to bottom, I went and ransacked every inch of my house. None of this made sense. I get maybe if one part of the outfit was missing like the shirt, but not the whole thing. That doesn't make sense, right? I grabbed my spare keys and went to search my vehicle. I had no real reason to believe they would be anywhere near my car, but I was desperate. Of course, it wasn't there. I knew I had only one place left to look, my ex's house. I stared at her name on the contacts of my phone with my finger hovering above the call button. I stared for what felt like an eternity, debating whether I should call or not. So just think you're desperate and want to get back together, or just looking for a quick hookup. I told myself. Finally, I took that leap of faith and called her. Each pause before the next series of ringing gave me what felt like a mini heart attack. I even said hello a few times, thinking she had actually picked up. I should have seen it coming, but after some time it went to voicemail. I let out a quick sigh of relief before starting my voicemail, stammering, "Hey Clara, it's Daniel. This is going to sound strange, but I think I may have left that outfit I wore to your uncle's wedding at your place. You know, the one with the Prada belt you got for me from last Christmas. Anyways, I really need it, so if you happen to find it, give me a call, or like a text, or something. If it's not there, sorry to bother you. Have a good day." I hung up the phone and immediately covered my face with my hands, trying to allay the embarrassment as if someone could see me. Of course, I never got a call or text back. I really should have seen that coming. To be honest, part of me was really hurt, but my ex wasn't the first thing on my mind. Currently, it was consumed with trying to figure out why I can't remember these things. First it was my keys, now it's a whole outfit. This just didn't make sense. It was so out of character for me to misplace things, especially ones that are as expensive as my nice outfit. I eventually caved and bought a whole new and equally as elegant outfit for the party. The event was as nice as you would expect an office party to be. I saw my coworkers, Ethan and Lucas, standing around near the back and decided to approach them. I really enjoy both of their company, even though I never had a chance to hang out with them outside of work. Or at least, that's what I thought. This leads me to why I believe I'm suffering from short-term memory loss. After a few minutes of small talk with the guys, Ethan looks over to me and says, "Hey Daniel, we all had such a good time at Skip's bar. You should come back again and kick it with us." "Skip's?" I asked, puzzled. "What are you talking about? No way you got that drunk, man." Lucas chuckled. Utterly confused at this point, I said, "I'm sorry, but I really don't know what you guys are talking about." You went out with us back a few months ago." Ethan responded, a blank expression on his face. "What? Yeah, it was your idea. You called us up, saying you just broke up with your girlfriend and wanted to clear your head. You asked us if we knew any good bars, and Lucas recommended Skip's." Ethan continued, "Yeah, Lucas chimed. We were out pretty much all night. We were shocked how much of a partier you can be. Since you're typically so quiet, it felt as if my whole world had been picked up and smashed down on the earth, shattering into a million pieces. I didn't remember a single thing they told me that happened that night. Not one damn thing. My heart was racing, and I felt as if I were about to have a panic attack. "I'll catch up with you guys later," was the only thing I could muster before walking away. I soon left the party, and any plans I had previously of getting in the good graces of upper management went out the door the moment I did. But I didn't care. I was more concerned with trying to figure out what the hell was wrong with me. This wasn't just a little item I misplaced or lost. This was a whole goddamn night that I have no recollection of. The next day, I called in sick and went to my regular doctor to see if he could help. I explained everything to Dr. Collins, the best way I could at least. So you think you're suffering from some sort of brain abnormality? Maybe? Why do you think I am? I asked, concern clear in my voice. "Daniel, do you know what SDML stands for?" Dr. Collins questioned. "No, I don't think I do," I replied. "It stands for short-term memory loss. Tell me, have you suffered from any recent head injury?" "No, I haven't," I responded. "What about sleep deprivation? Have you been getting a full night's rest?" He continued. "Yeah, I get a good 8 hours about every night." "Why, do you think something's wrong?" Before we jump to any conclusions, one last thing. Have you suffered from any recent traumatic events? "Traumatic?" I repeated, stopping to think. "No, I haven't. I mean, I did recently break up with my girlfriend, but I wouldn't say it was necessarily traumatic." I explained. "So what? You think I have short-term memory loss? SDML? Or whatever you call it?" Dr. Collins gave me a reassuring smile, shaking his head. "No, I don't think you have SDML. I think you're a healthy young man who probably puts too much stress on himself. Here, I'll give you a doctor's note. Take a few days off work and get out of your head. You're a nice young man. Don't worry about all this." I looked down at the note before asking, "So you think I'm fine?" "I think you're too stressed for your age, especially over things that are so minor." I took the doctor's advice and took a few days off work. I wish I could say it helped, but if anything, it made it worse, whatever it was. Over the next few weeks, I was completely paranoid. I second-guessed every decision or memory I had. It was like I didn't fully trust myself, or at least not my brain. The days I wasn't at work, I would spend hours still trying to look for my keys. I was completely obsessed. I finally made the decision that work was taking up too much of my time, distracting me from finding my keys. So I quit. Finally, my time could be fully spent on my search. I know it sounds odd, but I felt that if I could find my keys, then the whole world could make sense again and this nightmare could finally be over. The next 2 months, I barely left the house or took any phone calls. Though to be fair, I rarely received any calls in the first place. Soon, I forgot I even had a phone, which would make sense as I had forgotten to pay the bill for 2 straight months and the phone service had been shut off. Over that time, I had the same dream, or rather nightmare, every single night. In my dream, I would see my keys on a rabbit's foot keychain that Clara gave to me, spinning in the air above my head and out of reach, taunting me. That dream consumed me, only furthering my obsession with finding that damn thing. It wasn't much longer until the worst started to happen. I began to hear a noise. No, not a voice, but a faint sound, almost like a tap. Each day, it grew louder and louder. I couldn't decipher where it was coming from, but I felt if I could find the source, I could find the keychain. Then one day it stopped. I didn't hear it again for a whole week. That leads me here to today. It has been 6 months since I lost the lucky rabbit's foot keychain. Today, I noticed something while looking at my floor. My wood floor panels were off from their pattern. It looked as if the floor had been tampered with on a certain section of my house in the living room. My heart dropped when I noticed this. How long has it been this way? I thought to myself, and that's when I heard the noise again. But this time it wasn't a quiet tap. It was a loud, earth-shaking boom. The noise wouldn't stop. It was so loud, so deafeningly loud, I nearly dropped to my knees in pain. I looked down and finally knew exactly where it was coming from, underneath the floorboards where the pattern doesn't match. I wasted no time running to my garage and grabbing a crowbar, hastily prying at the floorboards. As I did so, the sound grew louder and louder and my vision began to blur until I had a flashback. I remembered breaking up with Clara on a Saturday night. I was upset, so that night I called up Ethan and Lucas to see if they wanted to grab a drink with me. They agreed, and I decided to wear my nice outfit. It had been a while since I went out to a bar as a single guy, so I wanted to dress my best. I remember the bar. The place was called Skip's. I got completely drunk with the guys until we all decided to call it a night. I remembered Lucas telling me I should get a cab, but I brushed him off, telling him I'm okay to drive. Just as I was on the verge of remembering everything, I snapped back into reality. I continued digging up the floor, and as I did, this stench began to waft out from underneath. In my whole life, I had never smelled anything so foul. I nearly vomited. Finally, I had removed all the floorboards and looked down beneath. But that's when again, I was struck with another flashback. This time I was driving home from the bar, completely intoxicated, swerving from left to right. It must have been about 3 a.m. That's when it happened. Standing on the side of the road was a man in his late 30s and what appeared to be a child who couldn't have been older than 10. They had their emergency flashers on. Their car must have broken down. Before I knew it, I had hit them. I was so drunk, I didn't even know what happened at first. My head smacked hard against my steering wheel as I came to an abrupt stop. I clambered out of my car, not understanding what had happened, and checked for damage. Luckily for my car, there wasn't a scratch on it. I then looked behind my vehicle, and there on the ground was the now dead and mangled bodies of the young child and man. I stood there for a solid 5 minutes in complete silence before tears started rolling down my cheeks. I looked around, checking to see if there was a car in sight. Luckily for me, there wasn't. I proceeded to load the bodies into the trunk of my car and drove off. I quickly arrived home, but now I was left with the issue of getting rid of them. I paced back and forth in my garage, trying to figure out what to do, until I looked over at my shelf that had some spare wood floorboards atop it. That's when I got the idea to rip out a few panels and place their bodies beneath it. I loaded them both down one by one. I remember staring at them down there, feeling like I was going to puke from the sight and from my guilt. I looked down at my clothes, realizing that they were covered in blood. So, I took them off and threw them down in the pit with them, my shoes included. Finally, I looked to my hand, and my white rabbit's foot keychain was soaked in blood. Their blood. So, I dropped it down there with them, too. Then I sealed the hole with the new boards. Being the clean freak I am, I had a mountain of cleaning supplies. I spent hours upon hours of the night going over every inch of my car, scraping off their blood. The rest of that night, I cried and kept telling myself it didn't happen until I finally fell asleep. I snapped back into current time as I once again looked down at the hole to see 2 dead bodies that were showing some sign of decay. At this point, I'm far too shaken to care about the odor anymore. On top of them are my bloody clothes, and far down to the right of them is my white rabbit's foot keychain, caked in dry blood. I bend down and grab the keychain, and the moment I do, the noise finally stopped. It stopped, and the whole world feels normal again, even if just for a moment. I fall to the ground and stare at the keychain, trying to process what I had done. That's when I hear something from underneath. The bodies, they began to come out. I crawled back into the corner until there was nowhere left to go. I am trapped there, left to await their imminent consumption of me. The Crimson Manor. I was never a believer in the supernatural. I didn't care for all those illogical ghost stories, and I always mocked my friend for telling them. They aren't real. They can't be. At least, not until I figured it out the hard way. It was the end of August, right before school was to start again. I was 17, about to enter my senior year, and beyond ready to graduate, and move from my small hometown in the middle of scenic nowhere. Of course, knowing Ethan, he always had something to end the summer. With a bang. This is the last vacation we have together, he had said. We have to do something epic. I rolled my eyes at him. And what could you possibly have in mind? We had been sitting in my kitchen, Sophie on the couch with her boyfriend, Daniel, wrapped around her as she jumped at the horror film on the TV. Daniel laughed at her skittishness, and I couldn't help but scoff at it. What a baby. I picked up the butter knife and smothered mayonnaise on some bread as Ethan contemplated the big game plan for this summer in bash. I shook my head. Oh, out of ideas? Don't strain yourself, big guy. How about the Crimson Manor? The TV clicked off as Daniel rose from the couch and walked over to us. No way, Ethan. I'm not going to that place. Yeah, me either, called Sophie from the sofa. What's the Crimson Manor? I asked. All 3 of them looked at me like I was crazy. Daniel let out an exasperated laugh. What's the Crimson Manor? It's only the most cursed place in this whole city. Okay, 1, this isn't a city. It's barely a town. 2, there's no such thing as curses. Sophie shook her head as she joined us at the counter. I had abandoned my sandwich. Maya, I know you don't believe in that stuff, but trust me, it's not fake. People have died in that house, and their bodies were never found. Then how do you know that they died? I asked sarcastically. You guys are such crybabies. So you're saying you'll go in and prove us wrong? I don't know why I hesitated. My gut felt like something was off, but it was all fake, right? There's no way ghosts, especially ones in some rat-infested old house, could make people go missing. There wasn't anything wrong with it. I'll go pull up a map, I said, walking to the living room and grabbing my laptop. I flopped down on the chair and put my feet over the armrests, opening the internet and searching up this Crimson Manor. As Ethan, Daniel, and Sophie all discussed a supply list, I shook my head and clicked on a link to the Wikipedia page for this alleged legend. The Crimson Manor was an 18th century building that was the home to the Crimson family. They were a middle-class family known to keep to themselves, even having the mail slot placed as just an opening into the large fence so no mailman could enter the property. The only member of the family who would regularly leave the house was the father, who worked at the steel mill across town. I stopped reading for a moment. My dad used to work at the old mill, too, until they closed it down due to mechanical issues. My mom and him got a divorce after that, and she had been working nonstop, just to provide for the two of us. Rolling my eyes at my own thoughts, I kept reading. The father would be seen leaving for work in the morning with a kiss from his wife and his son and daughter waving goodbye from the gate. Witnesses say that the daughter always covered her mouth anytime she was seen outside. On September 17th, 1857, a wagon had been moving through the nearby woods along the path across from the fence at dusk. The man steering his two horses had looked away to grab his canteen when his horses suddenly bucked and ran. They jolted forward, racing along the trail until the man felt the wagon hit a large bump. He finally got his horses settled enough to dismount and see what they had hit. The man was shocked to see a small child laying in a bloody heap on the road. She was gasping for air, with blood coming out of her mouth, where now ripped stitches lined her lips. She looked up at the man and said, "Please make the red stop." She died on the road, but her body was never recovered by authorities, because it was gone when they came to investigate. The case was dropped, and the man was committed into a mental institution. Soon, men and women would go missing down the path as their horses stampeded into town without their riders. After a pregnant woman by the name of Anna had disappeared, the authorities decided to investigate the Crimson family to see if they knew anything. One officer knocked and waited for a response. Receiving no answer, he and two other men kicked in the gate and entered the house. Inside, the walls were painted with pentagrams and demonic symbols. Knives still stained with blood hung from hooks on the wall, and the entire building reeked like death. Going further into the property, the officers found the wife in the kitchen, cooking at the stove. She had turned to the officers, smiling at them with blood dripping from her stitched lips. The woman held a finger to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She pointed to the basement where the screams of a young boy could be heard. The wife pulled out a pen and wrote on her arm, showing the police. It said, "Victor doesn't like us to speak when he collects the red. Our son must have talked too much, just like Emily." She then pointed to the corner where the rotting body of the small girl who had been trampled by horses was slumped up against the wall. The two officers stared in horror as the father came stomping up the steps with a bloody knife and a spool of thread and needle. He looked at the two men and smiled, saying, "Oh, welcome. Sorry for the noise." Carter didn't want to hold still. The one officer said that they were under arrest, but the father still smiled and said, "All right, but he won't be too happy if we have to go. He'll get hungry." When asked who he was talking about, the father replied that they had to collect the red for the creature in the basement. At that moment, the boy screamed again, accompanied by a roar and the sound of flesh tearing. The one officer who escaped described an arm being tossed up the basement stairs before he bolted from the home. He also said that the creature was large with glowing red eyes and horns on its head. As the officer ran, the father called after him to come again sometime and thanked him for the donation. When the home was reinvestigated, the mother, father, and son had been dismembered, each of their mouths sewn shut. "What the hell kind of messed up bull is this?" I called over to them. Ethan glanced over, chuckling. "They say that the mom will lure you in, and the dad will try to sew your mouth shut. If they find you, you'll be torn to shreds by the beast. Unless the girl likes you," said Daniel, his voice trembling. "What?" "The daughter. Last time a group went in, there was one kid who got out, and he said the daughter stopped the creature so he could get out. He was the only survivor, at least for a while. He was found dead after explaining that to the police. Remember?" I roll my eyes. "Curses and ghosts. You guys are way too gullible." Shutting my computer, I stood up and walked over to them. "So, when are we going?" The next night, Ethan drove us to the dam where he turned down to one of the barricaded paths. It was just starting to get dark as we all reached the other side of the metal gate and started down the trail. Weeds overgrew everything, and it was too quiet. I heard a small giggle, and I directed my attention to a small shape darting behind the tree. "Did you guys hear that?" "Hear what?" asked Daniel. Sophie wrapped her arms around herself. "Quit trying to freak us out, Maya. I know you don't believe in this stuff, but some of us do." "I'm not, Ugg. Never mind." I stomped forward and fell into step with Ethan as Daniel comforted Sophie. "Did you really hear something?" he asked, looking at me skeptically. I looked out into the woods. I swear I heard laughing, and I saw something. It must have just been My words cut off as a head poked out from behind a tree trunk. It was too dark to see, but by the time I turned on my flashlight and shined, it tore the spot. It was gone. I hadn't realized I had stopped walking until Ethan nudged me. I jumped and smacked him, telling him not to sneak up on me. Whoa, is little Miss Fearless actually scared? Shut the hell up. I trudged forward, stopping dead in my tracks as an old house behind a worn wooden fence came into view. The shingles were falling off the roof, and the siding was broken and rotting. A few of the windows had been smashed in and the door shut with a padlock. "Where do we get in?" I asked, but Ethan was already on it. He was crawling through a hole made by a missing fence post. "Come on, hand me a light." Sophie tossed him a flashlight from her backpack, pulling out her favorite, pink one herself. They both followed Ethan, but I stopped for a minute, catching sight of the small figure again. It looked like the silhouette of a small girl. She was wearing a torn nightgown and holding a teddy bear with one of the arms ripped off. I could just make out her holding a finger to her lips and hear her shushing. Me before Daniel's shout made me look away, giving her time to disappear. Again, I raced under the fence, asking what happened. "He's just being a baby," Ethan said. "No, I swear I saw something. Over there," he shouted, pointing to the old shed. He jumped and screamed again as a raccoon came running out of the doorway. Wow, I have to say that creature of the basement is way more underwhelming than I expected, said Ethan sarcastically, patting Daniel's shoulder. Daniel shrugged off his hand and placed an arm over Sophie's shaking shoulder, starting toward the door, which was now half open with the lock on the ground. "Wasn't that door locked?" I asked, pointing my light toward it. Ethan shrugged. "Probably not, considering it's open." "Shut up, smartass." I brushed past him while he was laughing, slowly walking up the creaking steps. My fingers had barely touched the door when it swung open with a loud creak. Ethan shot straight up. A small giggling sounded from the bushes to my left, but I managed to ignore it. I was just being stupid. None of that crap about ghosts was real, and nothing was actually there. I was just imagining stuff. So there's 4 of us. That means it's basically the luck of the draw. What do you mean? Each member of the Crimson family will pick a person. It's like Russian roulette, but we don't get the choice to play or not once we go in. The dad will sew your mouth shut. The mom will hold you until the creature kills you. The son will play a game where you may or may not escape. And the daughter will save your life, said Sophie, meeting my gaze with wide eyes, but only after you watch the others die. I shook my head, forcing a laugh. Cute story. Can we get this over with? Now, my 3 friends stepped onto the porch and slowly entered the house. Immediately, I smelled rotting flesh, even though the place had so much dust on the floor that walking on it would have caused footprints. There was no way there was a dead body in there. Was there? I moved my flashlight around the room, seeing rusted knives on hooks and pentagrams painted on the chipping walls. I could feel my heart racing. A creaking noise made us all turn to see Daniel opening the door to one of the rooms. It looked like a child's room with an old toy box on its side by the bed and a small security blanket on the floor. "Wanna play?" came a boy's voice before Daniel whirled around and the door slammed shut. I could hear him scream in terror and a crash like he had knocked something over. "Daniel," shouted Sophie. She ran over to the door and yanked on the knob with all her might, but it wouldn't budge. Ethan yanked her back while I stood there frozen. This can't actually be happening, I thought. Come on, we'll go find something to bash it down, he suggested, panic filling his voice. He left Sophie crying by the closed door, cringing with every scream, and bang on the door. Suddenly, Daniel screamed in agony, the sound of liquid hitting the door. Shortly afterward, before a loud thud, Daniel, Sophie croaked. Daniel, blood seeped out from under the door as she slowly turned the knob. She pushed it open and covered her mouth to keep from screaming as Daniel's head rolled out into the hall. I caught her as she ran over to me, holding her as she cried against me. I couldn't stop staring at it, like a horror movie come to life. Wait, I said. Where's Ethan? Sophie shook her head. I don't know. I pulled her toward the kitchen, stopping when I saw the basement door hanging open. Ethan, I called. No answer. Let's go down. No way, she screamed, pulling away from me. I'm not going down. There. Then stay here, I demanded before pointing my flashlight down the stairs. Ethan's shoe prints marked down each step in the dust. I took a breath before starting down. The basement was cold, like a freezer. I could hear water dripping from the ceiling and flies buzzing. Ethan, I called in a whisper. I shined the light around until I saw the shape of a man with a bloody knife. He whirled around and held a finger to his lips before disappearing. Behind where he had been standing was Ethan's lifeless body, his mouth sewn shut with a needle and spool of thread in his hand. I felt a tear go down over my face as I ran back toward the steps, stopping and cringing as I heard Sophie screaming for help. I bolted up the steps to see a woman holding her in her arms like a small child, blood covering her stitched mouth. Across the room was a towering creature with glowing red eyes and horns. On its head, Sophie's eyes met mine. Help, she said quietly. I didn't get to move before the woman disappeared and the monster stood between us, facing with its back to me. I closed my eyes as I heard her scream and felt liquid splash my face. When I opened them, the beast was staring into my soul. Its putrid breath hit my face as it smiled with sharp teeth. And one to feast on, it said. My breath caught in my throat as it reached its hand up and slashed down, cutting its claws across my face. I fell onto the floor, crawling away until I hit the corner of the room. It reached toward me, getting closer and closer. I closed again, preparing for the worst. A flash of light reflected through my closed eyelids, but I wouldn't move. I screamed as a hand touched my shoulder, but looking up, I saw a semi-transparent little girl with a mouth full of torn stitches smiling at me. The monster was gone, and Sophie's shredded body was laying on the floor. I looked at the little girl, who was giggling. The monster can't have your red. I won't let him, she said. The monster can't have your red. I won't let him, she said. WHY me? Why not them? I croaked, not daring to look at the blood. The girl looked back at Sophie, then me, tilting her head to the side as she studied me. Because you need your red to protect those who need you. Mom, I croaked. She smiled. You should go. He wants to eat. With that, she flickered and faded away. Numbly, I pushed myself up from the floor and ran out the door, stumbling all the way. I sprinted across the yard, stopping and looking back at the house at the hole in the fence. A man, woman, and boy with stitched mouths stood in the window, staring at me with empty eyes. Multiple other people stood behind them, their mouths sewn as well. The missing kids. The little girl stood in the door, waving and smiling through her stitches. See you, Maya. Another tear fell down my face before I scrambled through the hole and ran back down the path, hearing roars all the way. I vaulted over the metal gate and jumped in the car, managing to get the key in the ignition and started driving off. I was shaking as I adjusted the mirror. As the mirror faced the back seat again, I saw the little girl, blood dripping from her mouth. I lied. The monster can't have your red. She paused as I slammed on the brakes, suddenly appearing in the passenger's seat. The doors locked all around me as I looked at her, my heart hammering in my ears, because I wanted instead. I screamed as she reached toward me. The last thing I saw was red splattering against the windshield before my eyes closed, hearing the little girl say one last line before I accepted death. Welcome to the Crimson family.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. New stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.